An extract from After, written and read by David Gill. The night let out of London. Danny Blake was on the flat roof of the old Ministry of Health building on Alexander Terrace. He looked west over Whitehall. It was 5:40 a.m., and the April morning was beginning to lace with light behind him. Under Danny, the three floors of the old Ministry of Health turned over with PCDB cleaning staff. PCDB, professional cleaning, Danny Blake. Danny's 6-foot black frame was lying flat on the roof. It was dressed in the black boiler suit of PCDB. Danny was the boss, but he was still a cleaner. Best if he remembered that. Above Danny, stars smeared by the heat of London were being washed out by the coming of day. It was nice up here, quiet. 15 minutes ago, one of Danny's cleaners had shown up half cut. The cleaner, Vinny, was 7 stone wringing wet and was a Navy vet. Danny had frog marched into a cleaning cupboard to dry out, had fed him coffee to sober him up and Tic Tacs for his breath. Vinny had issues, but he could not show up for work drunk. For now, Danny had secured him with mops and hoovers on the third floor. Danny was a vet like Vinny. You could call him that once, and this was that once. Danny was not going to be played like a fool. Below, on Whitehall, a drunk proceeded north, his bass voice sounding random phrases at the disappearing night. Danny watched as the drunk was swallowed by Trafalgar Square. We come and go, thought Danny, and returned to looking west over Whitehall. From his position between air conditioning ducts, he sighted along the barrel of a rifle. Detective Chief Inspector Eddie Smith was 41 years old, and he looked every one of them. In his big square head was the thought, I should have taken up drinking. After Carol had died, no one could have blamed me. The clock set on the wall showed 5:55 a.m. Detective Chief Superintendent Cox had called an early meeting. The DCS was in her 40s. Her body still carried the athletic confidence which made her a London District 400-meter runner into her 30s. Hair set to cornrows topped a black triangular face. She wore a dark skirt and purple top. The 5 detectives in the room had spent the evening and early hours of the morning following leads connected to the killing of a gay man. The killing had similarities to a killing 4 weeks back of another gay man. Each of the detectives had come up blank, except for Detective Inspector Daly, who was delivering his report. Eddie shifted his weight. He'd spent the evening with a man who claimed to be Gavin, the victim's best friend. But he didn't know Gavin's surname or where Gavin lived. The lead had been eliminated from the inquiry. Eddie's 5'10" was in a black M&S suit, chest 40 inches, waist 36 inches, inside leg 34 inches. Eddie knew what he was. Marks and Spencer had the measurements. A big head onto which a flat face was bolted. His face was plain, set around a snub nose and green eyes. White shirt, blue hatch tie, also M&S. The big square head was topped with black hair and tidily grown out of being cut short. At D.I. Daly's large brown eyes picked through the words he had written, Eddie's vision slipped to Detective Constable Kate Fowler. Kate Fowler was in her early 20s and was bunched in her clothes. 5'3 or 4" and wide for her size, Kate's ginger hair was tied back from a pale, freckled face which was squinting at a smartphone. She had come highly recommended from Acton and was the newest member of the Central London Murder Investigation Team of the Metropolitan Police. In the few weeks since her arriving, she had barely said a word. She'd work out or she wouldn't, thought Eddie, like he and Carol. But he stopped that thought and focused on what was in front of him, the here and now. Contribute to that. D.I. Daly continued with his report. Danny ran the check as he'd been trained. The army would do that to you. Sniper school would. You left, but you carried it with you. He checked his environment. There was no one about to compromise the mission. He had 3 egress routes mapped out. He went over them each separately. The primary route would pass the cleaning cupboard, where he'd retrieve Vinny and escort him to St. Thomas Hospital, just south of the river. Vinny was the alibi that had been arranged. Danny had paid 2 women and a man to go out drinking with Vinny. There were 2 cutouts between Danny and the people he had paid. Vinny did not have to go out. He did not have to drink everything that was put in front of him. Danny had set it up to give people the opportunity to act in ways that he required. The consequence was Stas drunk in a cleaning cupboard on the third floor. An alibi. Danny checked his nemesis vanquished, loaded and ready to fire. The gun scope was aligned. Not proper sniper kit, but it would do a job. On a chain around his neck hung Colin's ring. He'd run the check again in 15 minutes. He focused on Down Street across Whitehall, waited for the target to enter the kill zone.